Hello guys, and welcome to a new Steel Division video today by me, Vulcan. Today I have for you a 4 vs 4 on Bois de Limors, and in this one I'm going to be playing with the 2nd Armoured French Division. So this video is a bit different to normal because I am playing with the Santa Claus beta update. It's an opt-in beta that you can access by right-clicking on your game in your game library, going to properties, then betas, and selecting it, and you will download the beta update and you'll be able to play it with whoever else has it downloaded. So that's cool. They've opened it up to everybody just to make sure that they're doing the right thing before they release it. And of course, because of this, if you are watching this after the Santa Claus beta or update has been released, bear in mind this is beta content, so just got to put that disclaimer out there. So let me just read out their synopsis of this patch and the beta. So vehicles can now go through forests and hedgerows. This is a pretty massive change to the dynamic of Steel Division, in that it makes it much more like Wargame, in that you can obviously have your half tracks and your light tanks support your infantry directly inside the forests. Now there is a bit of a twist to this, as when your half tracks or any other armoured vehicle drives into a forest, basically it gets a breaching modifier, which gives you like a 4-second firing penalty, or 5-second firing penalty I think it is, and you have to be fully stopped in order for that to go. If you keep driving, it will keep refreshing, and I think at the moment it's pretty severe, and I'll show that off as we continue, because just explaining it like that probably might not make so much sense. Then the other thing that they've done is vehicles' critical hits can now be repaired. So when you see tanks with tracks broken and bailed out, they can now be fixed and you can get them back into the fight, which is interesting. I think certain critical hits like bailed out probably shouldn't be able to be fixed, but tracks obviously, yeah, fine. And like engine destroyed and stuff like that, yeah, maybe a repair team comes along with a spare engine and just quickly replaces it. But as far as I'm aware, but replacing a tank engine is no easy feat, and definitely took quite a long time. So it's a bit of an odd change. They said they changed a lot of this stuff for authenticity, and I'm not quite sure that that is the same thing. But it does take quite a while to repair a destroyed engine anyway, in terms of relative game time, and I guess that should make sense. The other major thing that they've done, or one of another major things they've done, is made light AT units up to 57mm now able to enter buildings, which is quite a big deal. So for example, that includes 6-pounders, Pack 38s. They can now go inside buildings, just like infantry can. One thing that people are kind of scared of, from what I've heard, is like jumping AT guns in and out of buildings, and honestly, I've done it myself. If you have like a 6-pounder in this building, for example, you're being fired upon from like the north-facing area, then you can just drop it out behind it, and it obviously comes out of line of sight. Then you can jump it back in the building, and then get another free shot off before they can start firing back again if they don't have any recon. And that can be quite devastating for tank pushes. I annihilated the 9th Panzer in one game, in the early game at least, due to that. So that's interesting. It will definitely give more of a priority to having those caliber guns in your division, whereas previously the higher the caliber the better. But now that those ambushes are possible, I feel like that's not necessarily going to be the case. But just, yeah, a very interesting change overall. Another change is they've decreased the plane resistance, so things like the B-26B Marauder, that is now a lot easier to kill in Phase A compared to what it used to be. Same with Ju-88s and so on in the later phases. They've adjusted vehicle off-road speed. This is a pretty big one, in that it improves a lot of units that used to be much slower, like Bren carriers and stuff like that, on off-road, like, so they move a lot quicker, which is really nice. Same with things like half tracks, whereas like the higher things like Lux and Panzer IIs that already went fast off-road, they haven't really improved that anymore. So it's just a sort of adjustment across the board, I believe, just to make things a bit more fluid. They've also reworked the damage and critical hit systems in this beta patch update, and you'll see a bunch of those appear throughout the game. Now, because they've done this, overall it does make tanks a lot more durable, and the reason for that is because they are much more likely to take a critical hit than be instantly killed, which is, yeah, kind of scary. You can just imagine hordes of tanks coming at you and all you're doing is damaging them with critical hits, and they don't really start to fall back or like, you know, die. So they're constantly a threat, and it's kind of hard to deal with. Definitely a different style of play. They've also increased short mid-range precision across the board, which basically means that if you are closer to a target, you're actually more likely to hit it. Like a lot more likely to hit it than you used to be, which is a good change. Anyway, here we are. I'm playing with Val on my team today. We have Tiny Rick and Ciara, who joined me from the stream. This was streamed live, so just bear that in mind. Then we have Betts, Silhouette, the man who changed career, and Tanko on the enemy team. Quite a variance of decks. Val's playing 3rd Armoured, Tiny Rick's playing 6th Airborne, 3rd Armoured from Ciara. Betts playing 716th, 12th SS for Silhouette, 9th Panzer for the man who changed career, and 17th SS Panzer Grenadier for Tanko. So here we go. This is what the breaching thing I was on about. As soon as like an M3A3 like moves into a tree line, or like a half track, it gets the breaching modifier, which basically means no firing for 4 seconds, which is, you know, quite horrible, especially if you're, you know, bumping into units with AT. You know, you can't fire back straight away, which is, I think, fair, because moving them into forest already gives them a major advantage. And for example, if this M3A3 bumped into this Panzergrenadier, what's that going to do? It has no AT. The M3A3 can now just destroy that, whereas previously the Panzergrenadier would be absolutely safe, but not anymore. So we have our tank here just sort of rolling up behind the voltages there as they push onto the Panzerschrecks, and just creates a massive blob here that's very, very potent, some could say. You can see as I'm moving out of the forest here, I have to wait that time again in order to fire the M5A1, so that's going to mow down the spear through there, and that Panzerschreck is going to be hitting the M5 half track. So yeah, there's going to be a couple ways that people play this. One is going to be like people invest a lot more in AT, so things like these Panzerschrecks in order to counter, you know, units like this. Especially if, for example, you are the 17th SS and a lot of your infantry doesn't have AT, like Panzergrenadiers and Pioneers. Like these Panzergrenadiers, for example, they don't have a Panzerfaust. So if my M3A3 bumps into that in the forest, they're dead. Same goes for the Speartroop and all the other good stuff. Pack 38s can, of course, you know, counter close range, and they will have time to get the first shot off. But as you can see here, you have more than enough time to get out of line of sight before that's an issue, so there is that as well. There's a lot of weird like dynamic changes that occur because of this beta patch at the moment. Like in one sense you'd think it's like quite overpowered, but the penalty is quite dramatic, and here I was trying to like obviously test it out. And you have to have like my M3A3 here, for example, still for quite a while. However, if you have it there and then they run into range of you, you know, you're going to mow them down very, very quickly, and at that range, you know, 150 meter range or 100 meter range, you know, 30 cal is going to do the job, like very, very quickly. So there's that. Anyway, as you can see, I am being, you know, pushed in quite hard in the middle here due to the Spey and the like Panzergrens pushing those. But I am making progress on either side. If I just put it to my point of view, you can see exactly where my troops are and how I'm making ground. Pretty odd position, you know, to have the French in, because generally they wouldn't be perceived as a division that can work well in forests. There we have the Stoss troop, almost getting a second shot into my M3A3. They missed the first one, so just about get away with that. But 2 Nueva on the way. I'll try and have a look at these like AT guns in buildings. Here's one. Ciara has an M1 gun in this building, and it looks like Silhouette is currently fire positioning that, but as you can see, the AT gun's now just being quickly jumped out the back of the building, and that's no longer being affected. So yeah, interesting ways to play around it. Right, anyway, let's have a look at the neutral perspective again, as I think it will just tell the best sort of tale of this game throughout. My M5A1s can move forwards. Oh, that's the other point I wanted to make about tanks in general, being able to move through forests, is that if, for example, my tank gets hit here, for example, or like that's Val's Ram 2, it gets hit and it gets forced to fall back. Right, and it starts reversing. It will now just reverse directly into a forest or directly through a hedgerow. It won't have to go round it anymore, which doesn't like expose its side armor as much as it used to. Tanks are just like in general a lot harder to kill. The Ju-87 coming down there going to be blowing up one of my M5 half tracks. You can see that took the critical ammo explosion there in order to blow up. Over on this side, Val's pushing quite hard with the Stormtroopers. I'm pushing hard with my Pioneers as well, and of course the M5A1. Here's another one, ammo storage hit onto the M5 half track. It's another new critical. It's kind of like weapon damage, I think, the ammo there. I've also got my Pack 38, or that Pack 38, that's going to be hitting my M5A1. I was hoping that I'd be able to like get that into the machine gun range and pin it down in time, but with the gunner wounded, you could see the spalling was affected there, and that caused the Pack 38 to pick up both those kills before my Vultures could reach it, so that's annoying. Anyway, yeah, just trying out the new mechanics in general. Look, this one's got weapons jammed. I'm not entirely sure what some of these do, as I believe the half tracks or units with weapon jams can still fire. Maybe it's just like a decreased rate of fire or something. I have no idea. I haven't managed to figure that out. Although I have my Spitfire flying about. Nueve are pushing into Panzergrenz and the Panzergrenführer and so on. Good thing about Nueve is they are actually pretty decent close range as well as long range. They have the 10 HE in close and 8 HE at long range. So if I keep the 3-star veterancy there from the M3A3, it works out quite nicely. That's another thing. And this M3A3 is a command M3A3, and now I can have that in a forest as well. So if you run out of infantry command, you can just supplement with your vehicles, but inside a forest, which is quite a big deal. Now, a couple of my squads do get pinned and forced, to surrender here, which was unfortunate. Couldn't really do too much about that. If I started to make them fall back, they would have just ran into the Panzergrenz anyway. So I was just kind of waiting and hoping that Tankol didn't necessarily make those surrender. But Tankol's a decent player, he knows what he's doing. But at the moment, making a lot of ground by taking out his units here. And pushing to the other end of this forest actually makes it hard for Tankol and Betts to reinforce. So Betts is actually fighting Val on this left side. A historical friendship. Now they are historical enemies. But the Nueve is still cleaning up the Panzergrenz and the Panzergrenführer. And I could easily be moving in the M3A3 right now to take out these Panzergrenz as well. Another thing to note, as you can see here, look, the M5A1 is literally just right next to the Panzergrenz. Easily in line of sight. Got to wait the time to attack, but I had that on an attack move order. And as far as I'm aware, in its current state, you have to manually stop a unit before it will start ticking down the breaching. Otherwise it will just keep going. Even with an attack move order, it won't stop an attack like you would expect. As soon as it starts moving, it gets the breaching no firing, and it doesn't stop that until you manually stop it. So the micromanagement required to effectively use tanks and armoured vehicles in forests is actually quite high. And I'm kind of scared about that. I don't want them to necessarily make this a harder game to play, because you can imagine that good players would exploit that a lot, which would make lobbies in Steel Division even more one-sided than sometimes they already are. So yeah, it's interesting. Either way, managed to push through here. We've made a lot of ground. Currently +2. Maybe not the most efficient gaining of ground, but we got there. And now it's just a matter of trying to make even more ground and just sort of trying to finish off the game. So phase A complete with the 100-point reinforcement, and I think we did pretty well. Now we're moving on to phase B and C, where the second armoured definitely has a big chance of being overrun. Here comes my M8 Spy. I was expecting these to be actually pretty good in forest, but I didn't have a chance to really test it out properly. So there is that. That M8 Spy is going to come into line of sight of this Panzer Grenadier, and we're going to take a track wheel damage there. Got a weapon jam onto my M3A3 as that retreats from the Pak 38 as well. So there you go. Tracks wheels damage. I think that can mean either they are damaged or they're like completely immobilized, because I've seen tracked wheels damage modifier on some vehicles where they can't move at all, and then on others where they can still move but slowly, kind of like transmission damage. So that's odd. I'm not entirely sure. You know, I kind of feel like tracks wheels broken and tracks wheels damaged. I don't know if that's a thing. Maybe I've just read it wrong previously. But the Panzergrens, they're not going to get away with it anyway, and are going to be killed off. We've got 2 weapon jams here. We've got the M8 Spy, of course, moving very slowly now with its damaged tracks and wheels. On this right side, Sciarra is trying to hold back Silhouette and his 12th SS Panzer, currently doing a decent job. Looks like Sciarra is trying to get this into a building though, so that they can snipe the Bois de Firefly. Also got the M4A1 trying to engage that at close range, which is dangerous to say the least, but the M1 gun going to be getting on target and firing away at close range. Within 600 meter range, so definitely penetration range. Managed to make that fall back, but Pioneer's going to come in and finish off the 6-pounder anyway. Oh, internal fragments. There's another one for you. Another one of the new modifiers, and I think the internal fragments that basically causes your ammo to deplete and you'd be forced to fall back, I think. Like I said, there's not a definitive list of what things do, I don't think. Like here, we've got damage storage hit. So, like, that's not the same as, you know, internal fragments that actually removes all your ammunition. It's like different, which is interesting, because you'd think the ammo hit would like cause it to like blow up straight away or whatever, but I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure like Eugen will give us a decent description of what all of the new special things mean in the future, but for now it's just a guessing game, just a beta to mess around with it. So my GMC is coming up to repair all of these buildings, or all of these units. You can see that I've got them all around waiting for the GMC to arrive and fix them up, and I'll show you guys the new sort of repair logo that appears. And this is something that in general, like, I really approve of, and I think that a lot of people approve of. It's just the actual repairing of vehicles. Maybe not specific, you know, specific critical hits, like bailed out, for example, but the other ones, fine, you know, like weapon jams and stuff, you know, you can quickly fix that out in the field. I'm being pushed now by Pioneers and the Pioneer Führer from Tankel. Also, Nebelwerfer came in and kind of demolished our infantry on the top side. That's mine and Val's. Got some Spey on the way. And that was quite simply there to, or will be there to spot new stuff coming down this road. Ideally what we should have done previously though is had one of my half tracks like secure a lot more land up this road, because this is now quite well reinforced, a lot more so than it was, you know, 10-15 minutes ago. Tiny Rick's going to be bringing in his bomber. That's going to be going for the bomb onto the Nebelwerfer 42 back there. Does manage to take that down to 1 health. Doesn't quite get the kill though. Nueve in the open are also being pinned down. My M3 scouts, I mismicro these and just let them get killed off, which was unfortunate, and the Spey are going to fall back. Right, meanwhile on the left side, Bet's running around with a couple of these Flampanzer B2s. I'll trying to find those with his Sherman 3s. But yeah, in general, it does make tanks just a lot harder to kill. Like these Flampanzer B2s, like if Betts didn't want them to be found, he could literally just drive straight into the forest behind him and just hide. But in this case, it looks like he may be going for an ambush onto the Sherman 3, because you get like the cover bonus, as you can see. It's just you've got to be, you know, still in order to fire. And the Sherman can't see that until it's got that close. So we've got an engine destroy there. B2 can't fire back, now it can, although it's obviously falling back, so there's that as well. That's one B2 down there for Val. And now this Ram 2 in the forest is trying to take care of the Lorraine and the Panzer B2 there. So the Panzer Lorraine bailed out. Now I'm going to be trying to finish that off. It's going to be a lot more important now to finish off bailed out units than it used to be, since they can now be fixed up. So my Spitfire flying about. Focke-Wulf 190 is in the sky. HS129B1 does come in from Bet and snipe my M10, which was rather rude, as that was providing a lot of presence on this top side. Like I was almost killing the Pack 40, and with that dead I could have probably pushed a lot harder up there, but instead not going to be the case. Voltage's just going to be pinned down in the open. I'm still going to keep my Spitfires flying about though. Yeah, now we have, you know, 7 minutes left on the clock, and we pushed through quite damn hard. Now, as you can see down here, these M5 guns, these cannot obviously go in buildings. They are 76mm, which is higher than the classification needed than like 57mm. So yeah. But yeah, the Pack 38s can go in them, and in certain divisions where you have 2-star, even 3-star Pack 38s available, that's going to be pretty damn strong. I'm not sure like how this is going to affect game balance, honestly. I haven't really discussed that. Like whether or not it would make the Allies stronger or weaker than each other. Because a lot of people assume at the moment that, you know, maybe Axis is a little bit stronger, but I'm actually not so sure. I think like Allies are pretty damn strong in the right hands right now. And I'm kind of have a feeling that this could make them even stronger, just because 6-pounders and them being able to be a lot more threatening in phase A and B is pretty damn important. Right, Val's bringing in his Spitfire Mark 9 there. I believe one of my Spitfires already got shot down. Sierra's bringing in a Mustang. But here comes 2 planes more from Tiny Rick and Val, as Val brings in his Mosquito to join the dogfight. And the Mustang there probably going to go down to the ME109 G6R6, which is not very good, and looks like also the Typhoon might go down as well unless this ME109 gets forced to fall back. But nope, not in time. Val's Mosquito is late to the party, And it looks like the ME-109 might even get out alive. So good job by Silhouette there on that ME-109 micro. Anyway, what I'm doing is just mortaring the Pak 38. We've got the push continuing through here. You can see my M5A1 just moving on to these Pioneers and trying to kill them off. And one thing I have noticed is that obviously low rear armor can be killed by Pioneers. So you do have to be careful, like charging these 20 HE power grenades with the tank. However, in most cases, the tank will just shrug it off and then can just absolutely demolish these squads without taking any damage whatsoever. So the sappers have arrived. They're going to be using their grenades. You can see there exactly what I was just saying. The Pioneer Fuhrer is actually blowing up my M3A3 with a 20 HE grenade. And yeah, that seemed to be pretty common. So just in general, like, tanks are pretty damn weak in forests where you have AT, like even with Pioneers. Obviously if that was something like a Sherman, there's like a lot less of a chance that a Pioneer is gonna stop you from just decimating them. But just trading another squad there, sappers for Pioneers. And not too long left on the game now. Like 5 minutes until Allied victory. We've still got the +2, 64% territory lead. So yeah, I think something like an M4A3 with its like 6 side and rear armor, it's going to fend a lot better than something like a Sherman, which has I think 4 rear armor, maybe even less. One thing that might be interesting is if something like a ram does go into a forest. Oh, and another issue, very well shown off here. This Pak 37 made the ram too far, like fall back, and like not like fully fall back because the bar isn't full, but there's like an automatic fallback system where like when it gets just over half, your units will start to retreat a bit, like reverse away from the damage. And if that occurs by a tree line now, what will happen is your vehicle will disable its firing for as long as it's been in there. So, you know, for the 4 seconds breaching. So if it reverses like it did in this case into a forest area, the Ram 2 then gets its weapon disabled for 4 seconds, which can be rather frustrating from what I've found. So yeah, there's a lot to discuss in this the beta update really, and I think because the gameplay will change so much, they've released it to everyone, which I think was a really good choice. So props to Eugen for, you know, listening to the community, like releasing this update as a beta, making sure that they're doing the right thing, and yeah, I just, you know, like the new changes in general, in that it feels very refreshing, but it's also kind of scary. I'm not quite sure how it's gonna help the game overall. Because although I say that it plays very differently and the changes are dramatic, has it changed enough in a good way? I'm not sure yet. Right, in this case, M4A3 was sitting in this tree line basically, waiting to ambush Whitman. Didn't get the shot off to get the kill, now falling back. Does have a weapon jam as well, and Silhouette's going to start chasing that down. Big old off map coming in on this side. 210mm from Tankol there. But not really too much in Tankol's way. Just didn't really matter, because I could just bring up a tank and hold back his Pioneers when he charged in with those, and if he's going to use Stosstroop, then I just need to have something with a bit more substance. But yeah, Whitman really wanting the kill onto the M4A3, and currently, you know, 20 seconds left on the clock until victory for the Allies. Can this M4A3 stay alive as just Whitman's just charging forwards? He really wants to get that kill. So we've got some bombs coming down onto the M5A1. Whitman doesn't get across the bridge in time, and that's a total victory for the Allies in 25 minutes and 10 seconds. As you can see, the kill death was not good at all. 1,032 kills to 1,825 losses. A lot of that was, late game losses from where I was being a bit careless with my units and just messing around with how I was doing things. Like, for example, the M3A3 being killed by the Pioneers, for example. Just a matter of testing. But Val doing decent on my left flank, and Tiny Rick also doing well on Ciara. So well played to everyone involved. So if we look at the kills, if you play around the M5A1s quite well, they can pick up a lot of kills, especially in this sort of scenario. So that's nice to see. As often, Stuarts were used to push through the bocage, but a lot of the territory isn't bocage in general. So, people have been arguing that bocage should basically stop a lot of tanks from moving around, but yeah, like I said, a lot of the maps aren't really based on it. There you go. Stug 3 came in, that picked up a lot of stuff and kind of stunted the push, I guess. And then we also saw the planes go down, the Spitfires. I did lose, I think, 3 Spitfires in the end, so that was unfortunate. But overall, yeah, hopefully an interesting chat about the new changes in the beta patch. And remember, guys, this is, of course, beta. Things are subject to change. They might remove some of the additions that they've added because they don't really work out very well and people don't like them. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.